Do you believe in sin? When I say believe, I don't mean believe in committing sin. Do you believe there is such a thing as sin?
Well, I think the greatest sin in the world is bringing children into the world that have disease from their parents, that have no chance in the world to be a human being, practically. Delinquents, prisoners, all sorts of things just marked when they're born. That, to me, is the greatest sin that people can commit.
Hey guys, I'm Jeff Durbin. This is Luke Pearson. We are in front of the Margaret Sanger Clinic. This is actually one very historic site.
Literally.
It's literally a historic site, a historic landmark, but historic in terms of the evil, wicked things that began here really shaped the course of the future in the United States of America and shaped the culture itself. And it really started here at this first legal birth control clinic in the United States of America. And this was the Birth Control Research, Clinical Research League Bureau. This particular location here, Margaret Sanger worked long and hard for a space in the United States of America where she could actually promulgate and propagate her worldview, which was a wicked, evil worldview.
Right.
Let's be honest, Margaret Sanger is no hero.
Oh, no.
She's lauded as a hero today, but we need to understand, who was Margaret Sanger?
Right.
Is she the hero everyone thinks that she is?
No, not at all.
So who was she? What did she believe?
So she was born in 1879 to an atheist immigrant father, and her mother was Irish Catholic. She actually was secretly baptized into the Catholic Church when she was a child, and then when her mother passed away at 17, she went off to boarding school, and that's when everything changed for her. She became all about free love and feminism and socialism, and she, at that point, began to hate Christianity. And so at the turn of the 19th century, we see, at the same time she's around, right? You have Stalin, you have Hitler, and you have Mussolini. And the other three, not Margaret Sanger, the other three are obviously villainized, right? Because they combined approximately 30 million people they murdered. What's crazy, Margaret Sanger, you're talking about, she's a hero to so many people. She's more than doubled that now because of Planned Parenthood and the amount of people that she's killed even before they had a chance to live. So yeah, it's definitely not a good person by any means. Definitely not a hero. It's definitely someone that we should be telling the truth about.
So we talk about telling the truth about Margaret Sanger. Margaret Sanger actually believed that there were lower classes of people, or lower races, people who were not worthy to be cared about. They were seen as parasites. Her particular worldview, it wasn't just about birth control.
No.
The Birth Control Clinical Research Bureau League, everything she was doing here, it wasn't simply about birth control, taking a pill or a diaphragm she was smuggling from overseas. That really wasn't the main point, right? She had a worldview that she was living out. She was putting legs on. Birth control was just the tip of the iceberg. What was underneath that is that she actually believed, she believed the Slavs, she believes the Eastern Europeans, she believed that black people were actually a lower class of human beings. Jews. And she wanted to actually have something with legs on it that would actually help to exterminate, end those classes of people.
Exactly.
And she actually is on record saying that she wanted to exterminate the Negro population.
Absolutely.
And so is it an accident that we see that in the history of Planned Parenthood and this movement that Margaret Sanger began, that we actually see the abortion clinics, abortion facilities in predominantly lower income areas?
Exactly.
Is it an accident we see it right next to where there is a larger population of black people and Hispanic people? She believed that the Aryan race was the superior race.
The fit race.
The fit race.
Yeah, everyone else was unfit.
Okay.
Yeah, and so one of her mentors, Thomas Malthus, he actually taught that we should only allow essentially those to live that were necessary for the desired population, and everyone else should be necessarily exterminated.
Right.
So if you weren't needed, you should be put to death even before you had a chance to live.
So when we talk about sterilization,
exactly,
and things like that goes along with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so she, Malthus actually, he wanted to put the unfit, these other races, Negroes as they call them, not what I say, Hispanics, whoever that wasn't Aryan, he wanted to cram them into like housing projects, narrow streets, and wanted to introduce the plague to them. Mm-hmm. That was his desire. He literally wanted to exterminate them, and she was all for that. And speaking of what we have today with Planned Parenthood, right? Like, there's a saying that good roots produce good fruit, right? Now with Planned Parenthood, bitter roots have produced bitter fruit, right? So I was just reading a little bit ago, and so essentially, almost half of black babies are aborted in this nation. Almost half. Here in New York City, it's over that. It's over half of all black babies are aborted in New York City. So it's exactly what she wanted. Right. Only it hasn't gone quite as far because there's still a black population.
And there's a propaganda machine that makes her dream. I can't believe I'm touching this right now.
Oh, it's crazy.
It makes her dream, her vision, seem like it's about women's rights and their bodies and their freedom, when in reality, if you know Margaret Sanger and if you know her worldview, if you know the worldview of the killer angel, then you know that really what's going on behind Planned Parenthood, the women's rights, reproductive rights, and my body, my choice, all that, there's something really much deeper beneath that.
Yes.
She got what she wanted.
Yeah.
Like in terms of her believing there was a lower class of human beings, believing that black people ought to be exterminated, believing that they shouldn't propagate as a race. Right. She got what she wanted. And in particular, we look at New York itself. Yeah. I mean, in New York, her dream is fulfilled. Yeah. I mean, she's wiping out the black population. Crazy. It's a wicked, evil, disgusting thing. She was an evil, disgusting, disgraceful human being. Yeah. And it began, much of it here, right here in this location, on this regular old street in New York City. Right here, what we're touching right here, this Margaret Sanger Clinic. You see, worldviews have consequences. Theology matters. If you were to talk about Margaret Sanger for 60 seconds, if you had 60 seconds to tell somebody about Margaret Sanger and why she was evil and why her vision of the future was wicked, what would you say?
Well, first, she was an atheist. She was a socialist. She was a thief, a liar, and an adulterer. Okay. Right? She wanted free love. She abandoned her husband and her children. She stole from Planned Parenthood. At one point, she actually was removed from the board because she was stealing funds that they raised to invest them in the black market. Like, the list goes on and on. She lied about her resume. She lied about who she was. She actually went as far as to change the record in her mother's family Bible in order to make herself look better. Like, she was a vile, evil person. There's nothing righteous about her whatsoever, and yet she still celebrated. She was a Nazi sympathizer. You look at Stalin and Hitler, both took what she was preaching and applied it to their regimes in the USSR and, well, I don't know, I guess it was Russia then, and Germany, right? She actually had Hitler's main guy that was in charge of sterilization and eugenics was on her board at one point. So she was supportive of all the Third Reich, eliminating the Jews, which is crazy. We're saying that because literally right next to us is what is this called? The
Center for Jewish History.
It's right next door. And she wanted to eliminate them.
Yes.
Like, it's crazy.
No, that is wild. Right here at the Margaret Sanger Clinic, the first legal birth contraceptive
Right.
clinic in the United States of America is literally next door
Right.
to the Center for Jewish History,
It's insane.
which is it's amazing that they can be sitting next to each other in terms of everything that she believed about the future. Her hatred for particular races, particular classes of people, is something that's disgusting, and it ought to be actually exposed. Margaret Sanger was no hero.
No.
Her vision of the future was no utopia.
No.
I mean, it was a perverse, disgusting, Nazi-esque
Yeah.
utopia. Well, I think one of the things that most awes me about this is just some regular old street in New York City, and this was not very long ago in our history, and so much evil swept across the United States of America because a woman believed in something evil, but she held to that worldview and she fought for it. And because you've got this woman who planted here and fought for this, 60 million babies dead in our country because of her movement,
Right.
because of her belief system. And if anything I could think of is that there are little pieces of land, little moments in history where things can legitimately happen. I mean, not far from here is
A mile away.
Stonewall.
Yep.
And so we're actually in a little piece of property in New York where we have the first legal contraceptive clinic in the United States of America that actually launched the abortion movement to just slaughter babies wholesale.
Yeah.
And then actually Stonewall,
Yep.
the Stonewall riots, were not far from here at all.
Right.
And there's another movement that,
Yep.
that actually changed the course of our nation,
Yeah.
the culture in our nation.
They came from her, essentially.
Yeah,
Started
exactly.
with
So
her.
you got Margaret Sanger, you've got Stonewall, and this little part of New York City.
Right.
So much happened here that actually recreated the culture
Yeah.
in many ways, right?
Yeah, it's crazy.
So for me, I think about that as obviously us as pastors thinking about the future, is that it doesn't take massive armies
No.
to change a culture.
Right.
It takes people who believe very strongly in what they believe in, and they're courageous enough to start standing up and fighting for it. Now, I want to say, when unbelievers can do that and become national historic landmarks after slaughtering 60 million human beings, I think we can do it with the gospel
Yeah.
and with enough courage and boldness to be willing to lay our lives down to
Right.
shape the future.
Right. Yeah, we stand on truth, right?
Right.
We have answers or everything. She stood on atheism. Nothing.
Nothing.
She had to borrow, right, from
yeah.
our worldview. And this is important. I think especially for where we're at now in our culture with this movement infiltrating the church now, she firmly believed that Christianity and the church was her number one enemy.
Of course.
And she sought to destroy the church from within. And her and Malthus and all of her friends, they hated Christian benevolence and generosity because they saw that as their enemy, right? They saw the church helping those women that couldn't care for their babies. She saw them as the enemy, so she encouraged the women to abort their babies, to murder their babies instead of allowing the church to help. And unfortunately, the church is falling right in line with that.
Right.
And so I think it's pretty eye-opening where we are now. Again, she's got what she wanted. This is the fruit.
If you look at a lot of the early tracts and propaganda
Yeah.
that they were handing out here
Oh, yeah.
from this clinic, they would say things like, hey, birth control, don't kill your baby, don't take the life of your baby. Like, she was actually
Right.
arguing against abortion, just do it like diaphragms and just take these pills, and what about this medication? For her early on, it was because she was propagating her worldview. She can
Exactly.
only do it an inch at a time.
Exactly.
So early on, she was actually saying, don't kill your baby, don't take the life of your baby after you've created the baby, just take these pills,
Right.
just do these things first. And as soon as she got legalization, as soon as she got into effect what was seen before as perverse, it really was, it was against the law because it was seen as perverse, then that's when it moved into the next stage, which was actual kill your baby.
Yeah.
You should be able to kill your baby
Right.
at will.
Right.
So it starts just incrementally, small steps, small stages, and Margaret Sanger got what she wanted. But Margaret Sanger belongs. I mean, if there was a Mount Rushmore of wicked people in history, and if it was like Stalin, Hitler, Pol Pot, Mao, Margaret Sanger most certainly belongs on that. on that mountain
Absolutely,
of villains in history. And it's amazing because you see people like Hillary Clinton and other leftist and liberal politicians actually get in line singing the praises of Sanger.
Exactly.
Because
they're not ashamed of the history.
No. They know the history, and they actually laud her as a hero of
Right.
the movement. But if you look at her, no question, objectively, look at what she said, look what she did. She despised certain classes of people. She hated black people, wanted to destroy them. And we laud her as a hero. She was a wicked, disgraceful excuse of a human being.
Exactly.
Now, of course, she's dead now. If she was alive, we'd be preaching the gospel to her, calling to repentance. But she needs to go down in history as a villain, because that's who Margaret Sanger was.
Yes, absolutely.
She was a villain.
Yeah.
This place right here housed one of the darkest individuals in human history.
Yeah. I was going to say, speaking of incrementally, so she actually opened her first clinic in 1923 and was shut down because it was, at that point, was seen as something that was not morally acceptable.
Right.
Right. And she actually she'd hand out the pamphlets you're talking about. She encouraged something called a Clorox douche.
Right.
That was her first birth control method, right? Put Clorox inside. That will take care of everything. You know, and then when she, like you said, when she opened this, then she started smuggling diaphragms from Holland, and just a history of lying, of being dishonest, of disguising the truth, right? And so I wanted to make sure I mentioned this. I'm wearing my baby lover shirt, right? We're baby lovers because we want to rescue the babies in the womb from being murdered. If I was a Planned Parenthood supporter, this would say baby liver, right? Because they're guilty of selling baby livers.
That's right.
Even though they want to lie about it and disguise it and act like it doesn't happen, it's proven it happens. And again, that's just bitter fruit of the bitter root.
That's right. That's where it all came from. All right, so I think one of the things we have to do to end abortion now in our nation is start telling the truth about what happened to get us to this place of abortion wholesale across our land. And one of the things you have to do is tell the truth about the villains in history. Margaret Sanger, villain in history, not a hero, not a heroine, and certainly not someone to be emulated by any of us. She was a villain, she was a liar, she had a very corrupt worldview, and Pastor Luke is right. When you have a corrupt root, you will have corrupt fruit, and that's what we have with Margaret Sanger and her movement across the United States of America. It started with a villain.
And worldwide, really.
Right here, in this location, right behind us. So, again, it takes people who are willing to be bold, who believe in their worldview, and in particular, we know that God changes the world through the truth. So get up, start speaking the truth, start telling the truth, start talking about Margaret Sanger as the villain that she was, and let's work to end abortion now.